Hello, everyone, and good morning. Welcome to today's episode of The Boardroom. As always, we're live on Facebook, and we'd love you to interact with our conversation today. So please do add any comments or questions that you have for our interviewees below. If you don't manage to catch this live, worry not. It will be streamable back on who'swho.mt, which is Malta's leading business portal. Today, we're going to be talking about a very, very important topic, something that a lot of people are interested in at the moment, and that is the iGaming sector, a sector obviously that contributes 12% approximately of our GDP, so very, very important to talk about. To enjoy the conversation with me, I'm welcoming two great minds from within the sector. They are Heathcliff Farrugia, he's the CEO of Malta Gaming Authority, and Enrico Bradamante, who's had a very extensive career in iGaming, and he recently founded iGen, which is an industry trade association that represents iGaming in Malta. Enrico and Heathcliff, welcome. Thank you for being on the boardroom.
Good morning.
Thank you,
welcome.
and good morning.
So Heathcliff, I'm going to come straight to you to kickstart our conversation today, just for a bit of insight into how important iGaming actually is for our economy and sort of the country at large.
Well, iGaming, as you correctly stated, is extremely important for our country. We're talking about, if you look at the GVA, which is mostly the KPI we look at from an economic perspective, we're talking about the latest figures were 13.3% of the Maltese economy from a gross value added perspective. So it's extremely important for the industry, both because of the impact, and also this includes the number of employees. We're talking about roughly 5% of the employable persons in Malta work in the gaming sector. So it's a large number for the country. And the ripple effect this industry has on the economy. We know that ultimately there are a number of service providers who offer services to this industry, apart from those directly working in this industry. And it is an industry which sort of gives it's important also on an international perspective. We know that Malta is home to, I would say, all, or if not all, close to all the largest gaming companies there are in Europe. So Malta is one of the largest hubs in this industry across all Europe. So it is extremely important both for the country, but also for the gaming industry in general. So when you mention Malta in the iGaming industry, you're talking about, I would say, the Mecca of iGaming.
Perfect. Thank you for that great introduction there. And I'll come to you, Enrico, now. Perhaps you can give us some insight into when COVID hit. How was iGaming specifically affected, and what did the sector have to do to adapt?
Yes, good morning, Joe and everyone, and Heathcliff. So when COVID hit, there's been a number of effects. The first one is that all the sports, betting sports activities were suspended. And therefore, there was an immediate impact on the industry from a revenue perspective, because clearly there's no more betting taking place on those sporting events. This was the immediate effect. And from a long-term or longer-term effect, a number of these sporting events, the Euros, the Olympics, were then postponed to next year. So there was an immediate short-term impact, and there was also a medium, longer-term impact that made the companies change and need to react and adapt to this new situation. From an operations perspective, the companies have very quickly transitioned from a working in the office to a working from home setup in order to continue sustain the operations. And the operations have continued, of course. There are other products that are available to the clients, to the customers, be that the casino, so online casino, be that esports, be that poker, all these other product verticals continue to operate during COVID. So these were two of the key effects that took place.
Excellent. And sort of, Heathcliff, if I come to you to sort of ask about the authority, what sort of support did you find that the sector needed early on in those in the sort of early COVID days, and how has that changed? What sort of support have you been able to offer to the companies based here?
Well, basically, there were two types of support and two types of sort of request for assistance, request for help. Obviously, we need to keep in mind that apart from the iGaming sector, we regulate also the land-based sector, and the impact was completely different, I would say. Whereas for the iGaming sector, there was still activity. If you look at the online casino, there was actually a surge in activity. So operators were better off, I would say, during COVID. Obviously, as Enrico stated, it wasn't the same for the sports betting, because obviously sports betting, I would say around about 15th March, all the major European football leagues and sport events were suspended. So that had a huge hit for the iGaming sector. However, when we talk about the land-based, obviously in the first days of March, if I'm not mistaken, it was around about the 17th March, all land-based activity was completely shut down. So casinos shut down, gaming parlors shut down, bingo halls shut down, and that meant a complete sort of decline in revenue, because at that point they were literally unable to accept clients walking in. So in terms of the land-based sector, COVID was, I would say, for those 3 months was somewhat catastrophic, because it brought to halt their whole activity. So when it comes to land-based, obviously there were government incentives in line with other businesses. So they were able to benefit from the wage supplement scheme, and they were also able to benefit from the tax deferrals as well. When it comes to online, the request for help was different. And with online, as we said before, only sports betting operators were struggling, but even for sports betting operators, we had various discussions with government and also with Enrico, who represents iGen, and discussions revolved around the possibility to defer taxes when it comes to sports betting operators. And there we managed to get clearance even to defer the taxes for the operators who were struggling with sports betting, and we managed to defer those for 3 months, and that was for some of the operators was indeed a great assistance. For other operators, to be honest, other operators who had other verticals, as Enrico mentioned before, there were operators who had sports betting and they were struggling on sports betting. However, they had the online casino vertical as well. So for those, they were benefiting sort of from the surge in activity in online casino. They were at least, if not all, but at least they were managing to recoup some of the losses they had when it comes to sports betting. So for those, the tax deferrals weren't necessarily relevant, but for operators who were specifically focused on sports betting, obviously the assistance, the tax deferrals were of great help.
I see, thank you. And Enrico, if I come to you to sort of talk about how iGaming has changed in these sort of 3 to 4 months now, perhaps from an operations perspective, or even sort of looking to the future of how things will continue to change, what stood out to you most about that?
I would say what stood out for me most, Joe, is that the industry has reacted so quickly from an operational perspective. There was always this concept of flexible work arrangement, working from home, etc. But that had never been tested to essentially 100%. And what has certainly, this is one of my key takeaways, is how quickly the gaming industry, being a high-tech industry ultimately, managed to adapt and retain, I would say, a good level of effectiveness, of efficiency of working from home from the staff collectively. And this opens up a lot of new possibilities when it comes to employment, not only for the gaming industry, but you asked me specifically about the gaming industry. I think as I'm involved in different sectors, these conversations are very topical at the moment as to what is the workplace going to look like in the future, what is going to be the long-term impact of COVID and these measures that ultimately the companies had to put in place in order to continue to operate. So for me, this has been one of the key takeaways, no doubt about that. Also, when it comes to right now, as Heathcliff hinted, things are starting to go back to normal when it comes to our business as well. So the football leagues have restarted, the sports betting is restarting. So there is a going back, to normal when it comes to the revenue, the activities. On the land-based, the gaming parlors, the casinos are starting to reopen a bit everywhere. So these are a couple of considerations, that are my takeaways.
Thank you, Enrico. And that sort of brings me to a bit of an interesting question that obviously affects us beyond the iGaming sector. And Heathcliff, I'd love to have your thoughts on, obviously, a number of people have left Malta who were in the iGaming sector. Sort of literally, I mean the employees, people who preferred to work from home in the countries perhaps that they were based in, their homes, or were based in before COVID. Is this going to continue? Is this something that you see as a new trend, that perhaps less people will be physically based in Malta within the sector, and could this have a knock-on effect for other sectors?
Well, I believe that if you look at what happened during COVID, I'm not aware that there was sort of a mass exodus when it comes to iGaming. To my knowledge, that a number of employees remained here in Malta, because for the iGaming sector, we still have an issue with over 700 vacancies which still need to be filled in, and the vast majority of these will obviously be foreigners, because ultimately the industry lives and thrives by sort of, it needs to recruit foreigners. Why? Because, as I said before, Malta is a gaming hub, and from Malta, services are offered across all the globe. So you would need, for example, if you look at call center agents, you would need to have foreigners here in Malta offering their services, because they speak languages which are not so common in Malta. However, if you look at COVID per se, I believe that it had the same effect on a number of industries. Obviously, gaming is one of them. I believe that now, in the post-COVID, in the first month of, let's call it, at least in Malta, we can call it post-COVID. There are some other countries which are still into it, and they're still having a number of infected individuals. However, if you look at the concept of people working from office versus people working from home, I believe there are surely discussions at an operator level, but in any type of industry, because I believe many are now asking questions on whether or not they still need to increase office space whenever they need to increase employees. A good question, yes, is definitely the one that you asked, whether or not if you need to recruit foreigners, whether or not you need to have them in the country where your offices are, or whether or not you can have them anywhere across the globe. To be honest, that model per se, gaming companies and other industries, there was already that model of having employees working from different countries. Even here, if you look at the MGA, we have employees as well. For example, when it comes to developers, we also have developers who work in different countries, but they still provide the services for us. So the concept was there already. But as Enrico said before, this concept, this teleworking concept, this remote working concept was never put to the test at 100% test, sort of. And that resulted, in my opinion, there was a very positive outcome. I believe a number of companies, a number of operators, ourselves as well as the MGA, were surprised with the level of efficiency we had, even the way the employees responded to working from home. But what we need to keep in mind is that the circumstances were different. So it's one thing when you have employees working from home during a pandemic, when there isn't really an option to go out of your home because you are somewhat locked down or partially locked down. We need to compare that with a reality where now employees can go out of home, can go to office, and I personally don't think that it will go exactly to the levels it was pre-COVID. So I don't think any of the companies will have 100% occupancy within the office. So each and every employee will go back to the office. However, I do not see a scenario where the vast majority of employees will decide or will remain working from home, because we cannot underestimate sort of the importance of actually having that social interaction when you go to office. And going to office is not just about work. It's about, as I said, social interaction, meeting friends. It's about company culture as well. And there is no way that you can sort of instill that company culture by having all the employees working across the globe without ever meeting each other, without sort of having those discussions together. So I believe that yes, I see a scenario, especially now, where companies will think twice before actually expanding their offices, before going into a larger office setup, and they will surely consider teleworking and remote working. However, I think in reality, to assess the real impact and to know exactly what will happen, I think we need more time, more months need to pass. We need to assess even the situation when there is an official vaccine, and then each and every individual would be, I would say, if we can call it that way, COVID safe, if we can say that. And that would be where companies and individuals per se, employees per se, would really be able to assess whether or not they prefer working from home or from office. But surely there will be sort of the model will never go back to 100% occupancy within the office.
Certainly, great insight there. And I think, Enrico, coming to you off the back of that, I guess what that means is that employees in the future are likely to have more of a choice about where they are based. So potentially they could choose Malta if they want to be based here, but they could also perhaps choose to stay at home or in other sort of bases around the world. With that in mind, as a country, should we be focusing on promoting more of what we have to offer as a lifestyle destination to the iGaming sector? And with that in mind, what do we have to offer? So what do people love about being based in Malta? And perhaps what could we improve as a nation to make sure that we remain attractive, not just to the companies, but also to their employees?
Wow, this is a very, very long question. So let me just give you a few thoughts on this. So first of all, to go back to some of the points that Heathcliff has mentioned, if you look at the gaming industry in Malta, geographically, is very concentrated in the the Sliema, St. Julian, Tash Beach area, and this has caused a number of also undesirable effects when it comes to rent, be that for office space or for residential properties. They've gone up a lot because the industry has been so concentrated in this area. So when you mention about foreigners that come and may leave, etc., there is also another dimension. I've had conversations with 3 individuals that are now thinking of moving to Gozo and basing themselves in Gozo because, of course, there's a much quieter area. There's more space, less people. The company, also a company being based in Gozo, to actually move and relocate their legal address. Now, certainly there will be also some foreigners who, for a number of different reasons, will decide to move back, and some have already done so, and I'm sure that there'll be others that will, in the end, decide for a combination of personal reasons, professional reasons to go back. But I do think that the majority will decide to stay in Malta because they love Malta. I stay in Malta because I love Malta, and Malta has a lot to offer. Of course, beyond the let's say the hard benefits when it comes to taxation, when it comes to being has reached a critical mass. So it is really the only, I would argue, worldwide hub for online gaming, not only in Europe. So it's a very, very special place. And of course, there are some issues and some areas that we are working on. We're working on with Heathcliff and with Gaming Malta and with the government as well to make sure that the infrastructure, the overall ecosystem that is around in Malta makes the job of an entrepreneur, makes the job of an employee living and basing themselves in Malta ultimately easier. So that the infrastructure, be that schooling or banking, is up to standard, essentially. So I think ultimately, to answer your original question, yes, employees will demand more flexibility. And I think the companies will need to answer with that increased flexibility. And as Heathcliff mentioned, I do not believe that if I have a company of 100 employees now, I will size my office to have 100 desks or 130 desks, making sure that I have room for expansion. I think there are a lot of rethinking conversations that are going on at the moment in the companies. And there will be a spectrum. There will be people that absolutely hate working from home, and there'll be people that absolutely love working from home. So it will end up somewhere in the middle. It may depend on the type of company. It may depend on the type of jobs. It's going to depend on the, on the social situation. If the employee is married, has children, that's probably more difficult, and so on and so forth. So that flexibility will definitely be required going forward.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for that. Great to hear about sort of people moving to Gozo as well to sort of make the most of what a great destination that is. And let's hope we can keep it the sort of special, attractive destination that it is, even for sort of working from home. Heathcliff, coming to you and sort of, again, delving further into something you said earlier, particularly around the skills gap. We know that companies in iGaming do sometimes face a skills gap when in Malta. What should we as Maltese people, again, educators, look to be investing in when it comes to bridging this skills gap?
Well, I think the skills gap will always remain there. And as a country, we can only do so much to sort of help with that. And as a country, what we need to make sure is that we are doing the maximum we can do. And when it comes to skills gap, we need to keep in mind that the vast majority, even if you look at, because sometimes we do publish, we have an industry, we publish an industry survey, I believe every 2 years as the MGA, and we look at the skills gap. And the last report we had was in 2019, there were 756, if I'm not mistaken, vacancies within the iGaming sector. Now here we need to keep in mind that the vast majority of them, there is nothing the country can do about them in order to fill in, because they would require languages, as I mentioned earlier before, that are not common in Malta. In Malta, if you need sort of to find someone who speaks other languages, we predominantly speak English, and there is still some Italian. However, sort of Maltese do not really speak other languages. Yes, fine, you'll find some others who speak different languages, but in the vast majority of the cases, gaming companies have no other option but to import this talent. If you have, for example, a company in Malta offering services, for example, in Sweden, there is nobody in Malta who would be able to fill in a post within a call center. Why? Because obviously the call center, there could be the interaction via voice call. And obviously there is none of the Maltese would speak Swedish language, Norwegian and other languages. So in terms of this skills gap, we always need to keep that in mind. Even when it comes, for example, to marketing roles, there are always a number of marketing roles available within the iGaming sector. However, yet again, a number of these marketing roles, because even if you look at marketing roles as well, ultimately the country produces a lot of marketing executives, marketing officers. However, when you are within the marketing team, you cannot be in a marketing team targeting and offering service to a particular country if you don't know that particular language. So yet again, let's mention Sweden, because there are a number of gaming companies in Malta who offer their services to Sweden from here. There is no way a qualified, even through a university, Maltese person or local, qualified in marketing, who will be able to offer the services from a marketing perspective within a gaming company targeting Sweden. Why? Because you need to know the language, you need to know what interests, in this case, the Swedes. So it's not easy. So there are only a number of jobs which can be filled in. The number of jobs where I believe we can fill in as a country are the ones related to technology, to development. And that issue we have is not that the country is not producing. The problem is that the country is not producing enough. We need to keep in mind that ultimately, one of the biggest limitations we have will always be the human capital. We are just a bit more than 500,000 in terms of population. Obviously, 500,000, from this 500,000, you have just half of that population is those who are in unemployment. And from those half of the population, you need to have technology people for each and every industry. It's not the gaming industry only who needs technology people. Each and every industry nowadays, even if you look at the health, telecoms, finance, they all need technology people. Everyone needs developers. Now, as a country, we are producing, but what's happening is that these guys, the developers, the moment they are at the university, sort of even sometimes third year, fourth year, they already know that they have a contract with company A, company C. So ultimately, the pool we have is being literally taken away the moment these guys are qualified. And if you look at the numbers, you can see that year on year there are more people going into technology subjects. But the problem we have is that demand is exceeding supply. And even though there are efforts, even if you look at the initiative which was taken on board by Gaming Malta and iGen, whereby there are specific courses now focused on those who are interested in getting into a gaming career, obviously predominantly from a technology perspective. But yet again, there are a number of efforts, even at university. In Malta, luckily, we have one of the best universities when it comes to technology subjects, when it comes to development. But yet again, each and every company needs technology people. So I would say, even if you look at, if I had to suggest sort of, because my kids are still 8 and 6, so they have time. But ultimately, technology is now with us, but technology is even in the future. So the more time goes by, the more we will need to fill in these roles, and the more they will be driven by technology.
Certainly, thank you. And off the back of that, Enrico, it'd be great to hear as well your thoughts on this and how, obviously I understand your own background in the iGaming sector. Where do you think we could be better equipping our people with skills?
So I'm smiling a little bit because I want to say something controversial a little bit. So for me in Malta, if I observe, I see a lot of lawyers and a lot of accountants, right?
True.
So one of the initiatives that we are driving as an industry is to drive a communication campaign to make the technology to make working in the iGaming industry more glamorous and more interesting for the Maltese, whether it's the young Maltese or the Maltese that are already in employment, so that they do not aspire to become so many lawyers and accountants. And, they try to come more onto the gaming side, which is again a high-tech industry. So there are a lot of there are a lot of very, very interesting jobs that have then transferable skills into other industries as well. But yeah, so bit tongue in cheek, less lawyers and accountants, and more developers and marketeers and economists.
Certainly, that's great, and I'm sure many people would agree with you there on that one. So one thing that I'm sort of interested in is currently, Heathcliff, we know that the Netherlands are in the process of establishing their own licensing regime. Could this signal the beginning of the end for the MGA license? And what are your thoughts on whether we should be interested, worried, concerned about that?
Well, ultimately for us who work in the industry, obviously we understand how the industry operates, how the industry works. So for us, it's just another country regulating, sort of. But I can understand where the question is coming from, because we had similar questions. For example, when Sweden was regulating, many for some reason believed that the moment Sweden was regulating, all of a sudden all the gaming companies would leave the country. Ultimately, when a country regulates, it doesn't mean that the operators would leave because they need to obtain another license. Here in Malta, we have companies who operate from Malta, even 12, 13, 14 different licenses from different jurisdictions. As we said before, Malta is a hub for gaming companies. So whether or not they need the MJ license, they can still remain operating from Malta and offering the services from Malta to other countries. So in the case of Netherlands, the moment Netherlands regulate their own jurisdiction, so they would have more clarity, even in terms of the regulations within the Netherlands. Companies based in Malta would simply need to apply for a Dutch license. So from Malta, they would still be able to offer their services. We are in the EU, there are still the freedoms in the EU, and a company based in Malta is able to offer their services. Obviously, even from Malta, they can still keep offering their services to the Netherlands.
Okay, excellent. And Enrico, do you have any further thoughts on that and how it could change the sort of landscape here in Malta?
I mean, Netherlands is I would say an extreme case, because I've been in the industry and in Malta for the past 8 years, and at the very, very beginning in 2012, 13, when I moved here first, Netherlands was going to regulate next year, and it's been like that every year. It's been, Netherlands is going to regulate next year. So some of these regulations take a lot of time, essentially, to come to fruition. And I think from being a business owner, an entrepreneur, and a manager, general manager, the tax levels that they are proposing in the Netherlands is very, very high. It's probably the highest in Europe, which makes it not so attractive as a market for companies to operate in. But aside from that, I agree completely with Heathcliff's point. I think in Malta we have this critical mass, so companies that are interested in the Dutch market, in the German market, in the Swedish market, will still be based from Malta and operate with a license in those territories.
Excellent. So that's a sort of positive prediction. Now, something that an elephant in the room. A number of our viewers writing in to ask us about this. Moneyval, of course, is a bit of a grey cloud that's sort of sitting over a number of sectors at the moment. Enrico, could you define for us perhaps what implications there could be for iGaming?
Yes, I'll give you the super short summary of my understanding, and I'm not an expert in the field, obviously, but failing the Moneyval assessment and Malta becoming a grey-listed jurisdiction would lead to banking being more difficult, even more difficult than it is today. And banking is, when I mentioned earlier about infrastructure, banking is a necessary infrastructure component for any company and any individual. And over this last 8 years, the service that the banking industry is offering to the employees and the companies has gone down. There is no doubt, no question about that. And I think the lowest kind of bottom that we got was in September when BOV made the announcement of the closure of a number of accounts, including a number of companies that were MGA licensed. So back to Moneyval, the single biggest concern is that should Malta get grey listed, then whether it's player funds or investors distributing dividends to investors, to shareholders, etc., anything that relates to banking services will become much more difficult and much more expensive for any company that is based in Malta, in particular, of course, the gaming industry.
Okay, thank you. And Heathcliff, obviously, I'm sure the authority has its concerns about this happening. I mean, what plans are in place should we get the grey listing? And are you still positive or hoping that this won't happen?
I surely hope it won't happen, and I don't have a plan B, and I don't want to even think about a plan B, because no, it would be. I'll be very honest. It would be really bad for the country if we are getting listed. Obviously, I represent the gaming industry, so I can talk primarily about the gaming industry. It would be extremely bad for the gaming industry. We have a number of listed companies here in Malta. And as a country, let's talk about gaming. The moment our reputation as a country or as a jurisdiction starts getting dented, and obviously if you get on the grey list, it would be a huge blow. Obviously, that would a number of gaming companies would start questioning. A number of gaming companies who are in Malta would start questioning whether or not their place and their association with Malta would still be ideal. And as Enrico said before, ultimately, Malta is the place. When you're talking about iGaming, Malta is the place. There is no other iGaming hub in Europe, potentially even in the world, which is comparable to Malta. And it would be, this grey listing would be damaging for the iGaming industry. And to have the iGaming industry, the hub of the iGaming industry, based in a grey listed country, obviously, it's something which nobody is hoping for. If you look at what the country has been doing, but from when we got the original assessment till today, obviously I'm involved in a number of meetings. I'm involved in the NCC as well, which is the National Coordinating Committee, and I can tell you that a lot has been done. And when you look at the recommendations which Moneyval gave us, I would say the vast majority of them have either been completed, totally completed, or are close to being completed. This said, there are still a couple of pain points, a couple of areas which still need to be addressed. And now we have the remaining, I would say, 3.5 months for us to show concrete action on these areas. And I'm hopeful that if we manage to show concrete improvement in these areas, coupled with the fact that the vast majority of the recommendations have been already completed, I believe we stand a good chance of making it for this Moneyval assessment. And honestly, for the time being, I don't want to think about a plan B, because I'm so hopeful, and I'm so hopeful, so focused for the country to make it through the Moneyval that I don't even want to think about a plan B. Let's just focus all our energy to make sure that we manage to go through this Moneyval and avoid being grey-listed.
Certainly. So at this point, if I had to ask you for your prediction on whether or not we will be grey-listed, would you be in a position to give me an answer?
I can tell you what I hope. I am hopeful that it will be that Malta has a successful Moneyval outcome. I'm confident that with the last remaining areas we need to focus on, and if as a country we put the energy on these areas, obviously these are not something which the particular areas which still need addressing are not obviously related to MGA. So from an MGA perspective, from a gaming industry perspective, we did all we needed to do. So from our end, everything is in order. Now there are a couple of areas which still need to be addressed, and I am confident they will be addressed. I know for a fact that they started being addressed already. Now we have these 3 months for us to address them, but I am confident that we will make it.
Thank you. Okay, so as we start to wrap up our conversation, Enrico, I don't know if there was anything you wanted to add there.
Yeah, I'm just going to add one comment. I don't have a prediction, or I can have a prediction, but it's really not really very meaningful. For me, the most important and meaningful step has been the Prime Minister Robert Abella, who has essentially stated very publicly that Malta will not fail the Moneyval test. And he did so maybe a week ago or so to the party essentially address. And I think this is it's a very strong signal that we welcome, of course, when a politician his administration puts his neck on the line on something that is so important for the country, gives us a lot of confidence. And whilst Heathcliff is right, he's not planning a plan B, but the companies must plan a plan B in case the Malta is grey-listed. But this has given us a lot of confidence that there is the right focus, and also that there are the right actions that are starting to take place, that are being noticed at EU level as well, and being reported in the press in a positive way. Just yesterday, there was von den Leyen, I think is her name. She commended Malta and the Prime Minister for the work done on the Venice Commission, which is one of the parts that increases the reputation, separates the powers in Malta. It's one of the building blocks, essentially, as part of this Moneyval assessment. So my comment is that I have now I'm seeing the actions, and I've heard a very public commitment from the Prime Minister that Malta will succeed in the assessment. So I feel good about that.
Thank you. Well, certainly we all hope for that positive outcome. And as we sort of wrap up our conversation, I'd like to come to you both for your sort of insights on, if we just ask, what is the future of iGaming in Malta? And Enrico, I'll come to you first.
I think the future for iGaming in Malta is bright and will continue. This industry, there's been one thing that has been a constant, is that there's always change. There is always something that happens. There is a new jurisdiction, regulates, the regulation gets stricter, then they get looser. There's always change, and the ability of this industry to adapt, to seize the opportunities is one of the characteristics that will make this industry continue to be successful. And I am personally working for this to continue to happen here in Malta. Thank you, Enrico. And finally, Heathcliff.
Well, obviously, I'm quite in agreement with what Enrico said. I think the industry per se is very resilient. We've seen through the years that it's a very resilient industry. There were a number of challenges, both legal challenges, even during the pandemic. So the iGaming industry, the iGaming sector per se, is very resilient because it can quickly adapt to change, and that's a huge advantage this industry has. I believe that the future of this industry in Malta is bright as well. It is tied, it goes hand in hand with reputation, as I said. So the fact that we have such a wonderful reputation when it comes to iGaming in Malta, obviously reputation is not there. It doesn't automatically remain there forever. A good reputation has to be maintained. And so for us, we will keep working on that. As an MGA, we will keep working on making sure that those who are in possession of an MGA license are truly worthy of holding that license. And I believe if we manage to keep that balance in check, the future for the industry is bright, in line with what Enrico said.
Thank you. Well, great insight there. Thank you both for being with me on the boardroom today.
Thank you.
Thanks. Welcome. Have a good day.
And to everyone watching us at home or in the office, as always, thank you for joining us on the boardroom. If there are any topics that you would like us to discuss, then we would love to hear from you. So do drop a comment below. In the meantime, we look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the boardroom.